All right, welcome to the cottage. This is another serving of Fansview Fridays. I know it's been a while since we've been online. I've been doing conventions and I've also been traveling. And also, there was a free weekend I had, but webarchive.org was down. So today we're going to be talking about Middle Tennessee Anime Convention over in Nashville, Tennessee, which took place from November 2nd to the 4th, 2001. So, if this is your first time tuning into Fansview Fridays, this is our Friday evening stream where we go through Kevin Lillard's old convention reports. Kevin Lillard, or rather, the late Kevin Lillard, is a cosplay, anime, and fandom legend. He was one of the pioneers of cosplay photography and also posting about conventions online. When he went to a convention, he would post simultaneously on what was going on, whether it was announcements, guests of honor panels, and of course, seeing cosplay photos as the convention was going on. And this was an era before iPhones, before YouTube, and you could just look at the year 2001. Like, how many of y'all were around in 2001? I just posted a video about Anime Expo 2002 on my Instagram, and I had people who were like just replying with, like, yeah, that was my birth year. Well, y'all are so young. Enjoy it while it lasts. And take care of your back, too. All right, let's get started with a Middle Tennessee Anime Convention. Okay, so here we have actors Debbie Berry and Sunny Strait were in Tennessee for the show. Here's a look at the all-actor opening ceremony. Okay, looks like this is going to be a really short report, but once we're done with our live stream here, we're going to go ahead and post this onto our YouTube channel. Oh, check out this Dragon Ball Z collectible card game. AM General's magnum opus, the Hummer, has turned from military vehicle to the ultimate SUV. This one, decked in Dragon Ball colors, is traveling to the US to promote the card game based on the popular weeknight show on cable television. Sunny Strait, the voice of Krillin in Dragon Ball, is piloting the DBZ card game Hummer across the country and made an early November stop at the renewed Middle Tennessee Anime Convention in Nashville. Strait was also joined by Kira, sometimes Solar, sometimes Vincent Davis, the voice of Rory in the English language Martin's successor, Nadeshiko. Another Nadeshiko voice, actor Tiffany Grant, made an early dealer's room appearance to look for a new Evangelion and Source of Hunters merchandise. Actor Jackson Hamlet was on hand to tell fans about the world of voice acting and to talk about his move back from the West Coast to his hometown of Nashville. Bill Timoney, the English language Parn from the Record of Lotus Wars, also has a Nashville stage show background, including work at the Opryland, which is a few miles north of the convention site. And you probably didn't know that the English language Ryoki, Debbie Berry, also started her career in Nashville, and has recorded a country music album with a couple of friends. In Nashville, to watch it all and maybe record some of the show were filmmakers Stephen and Susie Lackey, who are on hand to discuss their convention fandom film. What happens if we click on this link? Let's see what happens. I'm just curious about early fandom fan projects. Captain Pixel? Well, this is very early 2000s web design. Just gonna scroll through here. Looks like a project that hasn't quite taken off. But yeah, there you have it on Web Archive. We found a crop of Tennessee costumers. This is before Kevin started calling us folks cosplayers. All right, my challenge for me for this report is see if we can find some One Piece cosplayers. When I was posting a video of Anime Expo '02 and Anime Expo '03, people were all like, yeah, we're all the One Piece cosplayers. Didn't One Piece come out then? Well, back then, One Piece wasn't as ubiquitous as it is today. So we just pretty much just dealt with what we had. And yes, there were people who did know what One Piece was, but it's not as like at the level as it is today as it was back then. You're more likely to see Final Fantasy cosplayers, fighting game characters, shoujo characters in the early 2000s than you would of One Piece. And plus, it wasn't readily available in the US then, because back then you had to know someone, you had to know a fan subgroup that was subtitling One Piece, and sometimes acquiring these can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you're a teenager, because it also involves sending money to some stranger across the country to hopefully get a decent condition Fansa VHS tape. Just scrolling through here. See quite a bit of Rama, see quite a bit of Kenshin. Yeah, like one of the things I liked about the early 2000s is people just cosplayed from whatever they enjoyed. Like there wasn't, well, I guess you could say that like certain series, because they were popular in the US, were more loved than others. Like this is also the time Cardcaptor Sakura started airing in the US. And this is also the time when Utena got its license and people were just cosplaying from the Sword Lesbian anime. Yeah, for a series to gain momentum in the US, sometimes it just took a while for it to gain momentum, especially if it didn't have a Toonami release. Like, we didn't really, yes, Gundam Wing was a thing since the mid 90s. However, we didn't really have the Fujoshi type explosion it really did have until it aired on Toonami. Because Toonami is what really propelled like a lot of these series to become ubiquitous and a mainstay at a lot of these conventions in the early 2000s. Like I definitely remember like yeah, shoujo was huge in the early 2000s because this is when you started seeing a lot of femmes get into anime because of the advent of Sailor Moon, and then from watching Sailor Moon you would then go on to Cardcaptor Sakura, Rayearth, Utena. But yeah, those are our first set of costumers at MTAC. Alright, let's see what Krillin's up to. The second Krillin entertained Nashville fans. At the time of the Middle Tennessee Anime Convention, the 6 p.m. weeknight showing of Dragon Ball Z on the Cartoon Network was the highest rated show on that network, according to figures from the Nielsen Media Research. DBZ had more viewers than any other weeknight series on cable and was consistently in the top 15 of all cable programming. To take advantage of that popularity, Sonny Strait, the second voice of Krillin, hit the road in a customized Hummer to promote the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game. Fans who attended Strait's panel in Nashville got starter card sets and Dragon Ball t-shirts. But the best thing given out at the discussion was the chance to hear Strait talk about the craziest parts of being the voice of the sometimes clueless martial artist. I gotta be in the booth, they gotta be, and they give me a script, and they tell me I'm about to be turned into stone for 2 months, said Strait. Of course, Strait is the second Krillin because he took over the role from the original actor once Funimation decided to move the dubbing from British Columbia to Texas. He got the part because he sounded like the original Krillin, but the portrayal of the part has changed from the first actor's version. At first, people weren't used to it. They said, that's not like Krillin, but they like it now, I think. One point where the dub of DBZ differs from the original is that the English language actors don't aim to match the Japanese performers, he said. And the reason for that is that the lines need to be rewritten to match the on-screen lip flaps, so often words must be added to the first script translation. Fans wanted to know some Krillin trivia. He's bald and the dots on his forehead because he's a Shaolin monk. And he doesn't have the nose to make him look cuter, or so Strait said. Strait said his favorite episode DBZ was early on when I got to be blown up by Frieza. It was the first time I could cut loose with this blood-curdling scream. And for a show where the characters fight as often as they talk, you really have to get into the fighting noises. Strait remembered a recording session where Krillin was firing a series of super fast punches. To produce the sound Strait threw his own punches in the recording booth, and the director liked the result. I realized I could do whatever I wanted, said Straight. Here's how to handle the onstage part of cosplay. Alright, let's talk about masquerade and performing. The previous time this author went to a costumers panel, the people had on hand spoke about the best way to make an accurate and convincing outfit. In Nashville, the talk was about what to do with the costume after it's finished. Dressed as Ghetto from Sorcerer Hunters, costumer Dan T said the costumes have to be properly presented when it's time to go on stage for a costume contest. Each anime convention had its own limits of what entrants can do and not do on stage. But Dan said it's possible to live within those limits and make sure your costume gets a good showing during the contest. The most common rule in costume contests is a time limit for the stage presentation, usually intended to make sure that skits don't drag on and bore the audience or embarrass the costumer. Dan agrees with this idea of time limits and posing them in the contests he runs, and he says cosplayers had to cut down the size of their skits to make sure they fit within a time limit. He remembered the time that he was given a 2-page script for a skit that had to last 1 minute and advised the costumer to edit their work. On the other hand, it's possible for a costumer not to spend enough time on stage. Walk-on entries should use all the times available to make sure that the judges and the audience get a good look at their outfit, but that they tend to rush on and off stage, often before the costume judges have gotten a chance to see what the entrant is wearing. For those present who present skits during contests, Dan can't overemphasize the need to rehearse a skit so that everyone knows what they will do on stage. Contest winners get their awards because of the effective stagecraft, and that means getting the presentation right before they go on stage. And part of the preparation means knowing what music you want played during a skit and having the music written in a fashion that a convention tech crew can use. Dan recalls a horror story of a recent convention where entrants were confused over which music to use. The confusion got so bad there was an onstage argument between the cosplayers and the head of the costume contest. Alright, whomever was that victim, please stand up. Oh wait, wrong button. Here are the worst pictures to ever be posted on this site. Oh no. Oh, this is the ramen eating contest. One person said there were too many pictures of people eating on this site. So beware, this page has nothing but pictures of people eating. The Nashville convention had a ramen eating contest. On Sunday, it said that the winner ate 17 bowls of noodles. Jeez, now I kind of want to have some ramen. All right, let's just take a look here, and maybe I'll take a quick break to see if there's ramen in my cupboard. Dang. All right, these are our winners. I pray for their stomachs. The acting sextet traded comments with the crowd. Yeah, I know what that means. Even though the Middle Tennessee event was a small convention, it had the largest assembly of actors in one place since Anime Expo in July. Fans enjoyed the presence of Debbie Berry, Sunny Strait, Kira, Jackson Hamlet, Bill Timoni, and Tiffany Grant, and they flooded performers with questions during the busy hour. Instead of asking questions about roles these actors created, the people in the audience were mostly interested in learning how they could start an acting career, and they wanted to find how the panelists got started. The audition came up, Debbie Berry joked, when she was asked how she got the non-speaking role of Ryoki in Tenchi Muyo. Before I did this Tenchi show, I didn't know there was supposed to be this whole world of people who would watch it. I was surprised there would be people who would email me and ask me about Ryoki. Debbie Berry. Am I saying her name wrong? Oh, I've been saying her name wrong. I'm so sorry. Derry Berry said the trick to success is training under a good acting teacher. She recommends Sue Blue, getting a good agent, and an old-fashioned perseverance. It took me 2 to 3 years to make a living at it, she said. Straight said his father was also a voice actor, and he learned from his dad the way to mimic voices of characters such as Donald Duck, and for 10 years straight made a living as a cartoonist. Then he switched from theater from there to voice acting. His motivation, hunger, was Straight's reply. Straight believes in on-the-job training, whether it's acting or singing on stage, to get ready for the competitive world of auditioning for roles. Kira is a second actor we've heard in recent years who said that her move into the acting came because she and her brother like making up their own stories and acting them out. Lisa Ortiz and her brother did the same thing. We turned down the sound and really bad movies on TV and make up our own dubs, she said. After some success with ADV film productions, Kira said confidence is a big thing. Don't be scared if you go in for an audition. Hamlet, the oldest of the panel, said acting makes him feel young again. I discovered the child within me and let it go. It's so much fun, it's a job, and it's a great job. Hamlet was raising grapes in California when an industrial accident left him with a disability settlement that allowed him to pursue an acting career. A brave handful of Tennessee costumers ventured on stage for the costume contest. So yeah, let's take a look right here. Okay, looks like we have Goku. Okay, this is definitely giving something in between Sailor Moon and Magic Knight Rareath. I'm not quite sure what it is, but anyone in the comments or anyone want to shout it out, because I probably don't know. Okay, we have Chichiri, Wolfwood, Eris. We have a very happy Miyaka. Okay, then we also have Evangelion. Oh, check that out. Cardcaptor Sakura. We have Ryoki and an Akuma. Alright, we have a couple folks over here. Oh, we got a duo in a chokehold from Lady Oon. I love it. We have another Wolfwood. Yeah, this is also the year of the Wolfwoods. I appreciate this. We have Ruby Moon. We have Cypher from Part 8. Final Fantasy 8 was huge in 01. Even I considered cosplaying as Renoa. Okay. Alright, let's just take a look. Maybe the next section will tell us who won. Here are the judges' choices for the award winners for the costume contest. Okay, looks like Ryoki got Best Overall. Best Craftsmanship went to Ruby Moon. Best Presentation went to Cypher. Best Skit went to Lady Oon and Duo. Best Child went to Goku. And Kira's award looks like... Yeah, so this is also back in the day when voice actors used to give out awards. So looks like... I want to assume this is Moose, but I'm not sure. So if anyone in the comments want to correct me on that, I'd appreciate that. And we also have Ozgun, the plug suit. And Child Honorable Mention. Like I said, like, it's giving like Sailor animates from the manga, but I'm not too sure. Yeah. Alright, and looks like Kevin is about to wrap things up. The author just needed a little space to write up his notes on a small convention. Okay, just give me a moment here. Two signs of authentic Americana on Saturday night at a Nashville hotel. Upstairs, a woman sings country music in the hotel lounge. Downstairs, anime fans dance to rock and J-pop as they wave their glow sticks. Now that there's been a second anime convention in Nashville, the city's best known for Roy Acuff and the Grand Ole Opry, there's no such thing as an unlikely place for a convention, except maybe the bottom of a coal mine or on top of a mountain. After all, Nashville has more than the Ryman Auditorium nowadays. They have the NFL and HL teams, so why not an anime convention? What is unusual to hold a convention at the time of war. That never happened when these events were in their infancy because the first convention took place a few months after the end of the Gulf War. So conventions take place under a thin veneer of fear, hidden from the warnings of a chance for more terrorist attacks. Middle Tennessee faced a special challenge. The first convention was held in 1999, but the 2000 event was called off for a couple of weeks before it was scheduled to be held. So the organizers had to drum up interest in their convention without the year-to-year momentum that was so valuable. And they also had the potential of competition from the following week's SugoiCon, a few hours away by highway. But one of the convention's volunteers pointed out that another event that seemed unlikely to draw the same crowd was an anime convention, but apparently did. A hackers convention in Nashville. We were told that some hackers are anime fans, and some of them slipped away from the hacker conference to shop at the Middle Tennessee's dealer's room. And then there was also a Bob Dylan concert in Nashville on the Middle Tennessee weekend, although Dylan may be too old school for anime fans. Funny you mention that, Kevin, because at this time I was a Bob Dylan fan. I was getting into my singer-songwriter era. It looked as if there were 400 people were on hand for 2 days that the author was able to attend Middle Tennessee. It felt like a cross between a convention and a weekend anime club meeting, but that's not bad since there were no long elevator waits and no long lines or anything. It might say something that there were several volunteers from the ranks of Anime Weekend Atlanta volunteers who helped Middle Tennessee. It's also interesting to note that the only convention flyer spotted by this author at the hotel was for the second YaoiCon, scheduled for a half a continent away in California. There was also another distinction for the Nashville event. It's not unusual for a convention to have several English language voice actors as guests of honor, but Middle Tennessee may have been the first event where all guests were actors. Tiffany Grant and Kira Solar had been seen earlier in the year, but Bill Timoni, Debbie Derryberry, and Sonny Strait and Jackson Hamlet were making their first appearances of the year. Strait, one of the Dragon Ball actors, appeared during a hot streak of the show, which in October was challenging SpongeBob SquarePants for the highest Nielsen Media Research rating among animated cartoons on cable TV. Dragon Ball was regularly appearing in the cable top 15, and in the 6 p.m. episodes were the highest rated Monday through Friday shows on cable. Just as the author has seen other conventions, fans form a long line to get autographs and pictures of the actors, and Debbie Derryberry spent the weekend promoting her appearance in the Jimmy Neutron film and her country theme Honey Pig album. A couple of years ago, the author wrote in the notes for another convention that the U.S. economy was driven by Pokemon, pro wrestling, and NASCAR racing, and the rise of anime's popularity could be good for business. Now with rumblings of a recession from the dot-com collapse and fears of terrorism, there could be some fresh truth to that assumption. I gotta screenshot this. A few days before the Nashville Convention, Bandai, the big Japanese toy company, announced that their profit was going to be higher than they expected, and the reason was because the brisk sales of Digimon and Gundam toys in the U.S. and Europe. By comparison, Matsumoto Corp said they were planning to run their factories only 4 days a week because of slower product demand in the U.S. On the other hand, even Dragon Ball may be dwarfed by Harry Potter and Star Wars. On the week before the Nashville event, there's plenty of buzz about the Potter movie that was 2 weeks away, and plans to show the Star Wars Episode 2 trailer before the Monsters, Inc. film had fans planning to go to the film just for the trailer. But anime fans have their own loves. One of the most fascinating places at the convention was a contact lens display, the lenses that are fashion statements, with bright colors and animalistic irises. Quite a few fans took the time to try a couple lenses and find what they would look like with red and blue eyes or with cat irises. All right, that is it for Middle Tennessee Anime Convention 2001. This was a very short report. Looks like next time around we'll be covering SugoiCon. And if you like this era, I highly encourage y'all to check out my book, The Fangirl Diaries. The Fangirl Diaries is all about this era of anime fandom. You can read about my experience as a cringy teenager in the early 2000s and late 90s, a time before YouTube, a time before streaming, a time before social media and Instagram. What was fandom like before then? Definitely check out my book, available at all major booksellers. Highly recommend. Well, again, it's me, and you're also supporting my livelihood. And I'm hoping to write more published works about fandom. So definitely check out my book, The Fangirl Diaries. And that's that. Also, if you like this, like anything cosplay related, I highly recommend checking out the upcoming Crafting Con by E.P. Stobbs. This is a love story. This is a romance YA novel about two childhood friends who are cosplayers. You know, those cute Cardcaptor Sakura cosplayers you see run around the convention. They grew up in the convention world, and after leaving it for a brief moment, they find each other again. And, well, what happens next in this childhood friends to enemies to lovers story by E.P. Stobbs? Check it out. All right. With that said, thank you again for tuning in to Fansview Fridays. We appreciate you being here, whether or not it's watching us live on our Twitch stream or watching us on YouTube. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on that notification bell, because yeah, I don't intend to stop doing this anytime soon. Well, with Fancy Fridays, there's only a certain number of things I can do, but you know what? I actually want to go through some of the personalities of the week, just so I can keep this momentum going with Fancy Friday. So with that said, maybe next time around we'll get through as many anime personalities of the week. Probably not on a Friday. I'll probably maybe do it sometime on another day, but I know that was just another section of his website. So with that said, thank you again for tuning in to Fancy Fridays. Again, hit that like, subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications, and dang, that is a tongue twister. With that said, thank you so much, and we hope to see you again at my virtual cottage.